Hello, everyone. I'm going to be explaining to you why I truly believe that Saskatoon and Saskatchewan in general is one of the greatest markets to be investing in real estate. And if you're interested in investing in real estate, why you should be looking at the Saskatoon real estate market. My name is Jack Bouvier, and I'm a real estate agent here in Saskatoon. I'm also an investor. I'm an investor focused realtor, and I help investors grow their portfolio as well as buy and sell their residential properties, as well as commercial and multifamily properties as well. So I'm going to be explaining to you guys why I truly believe that this market is one of the best in Canada to invest. And let's dive right into it. So, what are you going to be getting out of this? Well, there's multiple different areas that we're going to be talking about today. And in general, I'm just going to be sharing with you how to be investing in real estate, why Saskatchewan is one of the greatest markets to be investing in, and just some ideas as to how to make that happen. So, we're going to be talking about the Saskatchewan economy, why it's growing, and why there's so much demand and so many eyes on this market. Then, we're also going to be talking about the housing market. So, we're going to be talking about the different prices, the trajectory of Saskatchewan, and where it's come from, and where it's going to, and where the rise is coming from. We're going to be talking about the rental market and how the rent prices have increased so much and why they've increased by so much. Then we're also going to just be talking about different investment strategies. So we're going to be talking about seller financing, multifamily, different creative strategies to close the deals, also just different investment strategies that you can take. So why would you want to listen to me? That's a very valid question. I mean, probably don't know who I am. I'm a real estate investor and real estate agent here in Saskatoon. Just to give you a little background and story about me, I've started my journey as being a mechanical engineer. After doing my internship, I really got turned off by that 9 to 5 office job working for that oil and gas company. Nothing bad to say about it in general, but I knew that wasn't for me. And then, so when COVID hit, I did my last year of engineering online and I was working for my dad's manufacturing business. Really helped me get a better understanding of business development as well as sales, marketing, everything in general. And as that process came about, was learning a lot about business, and I came across the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar of. And that really piqued my interest into investing in real estate, investing in businesses, and just getting my own business started. So, really got interested in real estate investing. I had a lot of influence from my dad and brother. And so, really wanted to get headfirst into real estate. So, I got multiple different educations, such as just reading lots of podcasts, listening on to reading a lot of books. And I came across the Burr method. So that was a method that I knew that I wanted to take part of. And so I started door knocking, started finding deals, and I actually came across a deal off Kijiji, which led me to the house that I'm currently sitting in right now. And it was a full Burr process, and we'll go through the numbers here a little bit later. But this really piqued my interest to want to escalate my real estate investment portfolio. And during that whole process of the renovations of this Burr property that we got, it actually led me to get some more deals and some more leads of some really good deals. But I was in the middle of my project, so I couldn't actually take part of those deals. So I ended up wholesaling them. So then I got into wholesaling. I was doing a little bit of wholesaling to get some active cash. And there were some times where I couldn't wholesale deals to my buyer's list. So I had to refer it out to another realtor, and that realtor ended up selling it. So I kind of saw the loss of commission that I could have got. So that was one area that I was like, okay, well, maybe I should get my real estate license in the future. Didn't end up doing it right away. Then I started working for my brother's painting company, helped him out with the sales in general. And we had a lot of residential clients who were looking to paint their place and then sell them. So I didn't have my real estate license, but I was like, well, now we have a lot of painting clients who are looking to sell their place. So that was another area where I knew I could add some value, and also was a benefit for me to get my real estate license. So with wholesaling, wanting to building up my portfolio and my painting clients and helping other investors, knowing that I have lots of value to share with other investors going through this experience, I knew getting my real estate license was a great fit. So now I've actually grown my portfolio to 5 rental doors, and I've closed 17 deals in my first 18 months. So pretty successful so far. And it's just the beginning. So that's just a little bit about me. And we'll continue on with the Saskatchewan real estate market. So why is Saskatchewan growing so much? There's multiple different reasons. We have a very strong economy in five main sectors, one of them being agriculture. We're in the prairies, there's tons of agriculture here, and we actually have 40% of Canada's cultivated farmland. Here in Canada, that's a huge amount because we're a very, very big province. So holding 40% of that is huge. We have a huge increase in pulse crops such as chickpeas, lentils, legumes, all of those. Lots of canola, lots of wheat, lots of carrot seeds, durum, canola, mustard, oats, flax, peas, lentils, all of that were very high in the rankings of the world export market. Same thing with minerals and mining. We have a $7 billion mine that just got funded out in eastern Saskatchewan by Humboldt area. That's with BHP. That's a huge mine that just got implemented and invested in. And we actually have the world's largest deposits of potash and high grade uranium, which is amazing and obviously an abundant resource for the whole world. And so there's just lots of investment attractiveness for the mining here. And so we also have a huge resource or huge demand in energy. Here in Saskatchewan, we're the second largest oil producer in Canada, and we also have the third largest natural gas producer in Canada. And I don't believe that oil and gas are going to be going away anytime soon. Sure, our government wants to be pushing more towards the green energy. However, we're always going to need oil and gas. So that's a huge economic driver as well. Same thing with forestry. Literally half of our province is covered in forest, like above the half northern part of Saskatchewan. It's mainly all forest, and that's a huge driving economy for a lot of major businesses. And manufacturing as well. There's 6.1% of the provincial GDP of manufacturing here. So that is another big economic driver. So those are some of the reasons why so many jobs have been created and so many people are flocking to Saskatchewan with the abundance of the strong economy that we have here, which leads to the immigration rates. We have about 12.5% of our population here in Saskatchewan as immigrants. 86% are non-immigrants, Canadian born, and 1% are non-permanent foreign residents, such as international students and whatnot. So from 43% of our population came from immigrants in between 2016 and 2021. We had a big dip in 2021 or 2020 right after COVID. I mean, understandably so. However, it literally doubled the year after in 2022 with the amount of immigration that came here in Saskatchewan. And surprisingly, the second most spoken language is Philippines. And this shouldn't be cut off here, but the second most spoken language in Saskatchewan is the Philippines, Filipino. And the second most amount of immigrants that we have here in Saskatchewan is East Indians. And then third is China. So we have those three main immigrant populations here in Saskatchewan. There's obviously lots of others, but those are the main three. So this leads to a housing shortage. With the higher increase of immigrants that are coming to our province, there's a huge demand for more houses. And in 2022, Saskatchewan's population grew by 29,000 people. New houses have increased to 3,500 in 2022, but that leaves an outstanding gap of 25,000. Obviously, there's not going to be one house per one person, so that relationship is not directly correlated. However, it still indicates that there is a large gap of demand and supply for houses here in Saskatchewan. So that is concerning to our government and our province because we need to obviously house these people and create more places for people to call home. There is incentives such as the Saskatchewan Secondary Suite Incentive Program, and that is if you have a residence where your suite is or your basement is unfinished or it's just a regular basement or it's a non-conforming suite, there is a grant being put in place where you can get 35% of your costs to renovate that place back for making it a legal suite. So they're incentivizing you up to $35,000, which is a huge lump sum to be able to convert your basement into a legal suite to accommodate for additional rentals. And the amount of renters from 2016 to 2021 has increased from 25.4% to 26.4%. So in the past 5 years, there's been a 1% increase of rental demand here in Saskatchewan. And I just believe it's continually increasing. So for landlords, that's great. Our renters are, well, there's more demand for rentals. However, these renters are eventually going to become homeowners. So there's lots of demand for new development homes and just new house construction as well. So, what is the plan for Saskatoon to keep up with this demand? Well, Saskatoon plans to welcome 250,000 new people in the next decades, over reaching 500,000 people total in population. We're currently sitting about 250 to 300. I don't know the exact number. And if that comes into play, depending on which scenario we run into with the amount of increase in population, we could be seeing upwards of 420 to 500,000 people in Saskatoon. So, what is the city going to be doing, and where are they planning on growing? There are really five main areas that the city is planning for growing. This kind of touches on the full city of Saskatoon. The main area is the university area, and this is where they're going to be building a lot of corridors and the rapid transit system, which we'll touch on in a sec. However, with Saskatchewan Polytech, so it's a big college in downtown Saskatoon, is going to be moving to the university campus. So that's a huge, huge move and transfer of a lot of students from that downtown core area going to the university area. So that's going to be quite interesting to see how that affects the downtown core and the university area. They're going to be implementing a lot of, just effective bus transit systems in order to commute and all those students in that area. There's also different areas such as University Heights that's going to be growing. That's Aspen Ridge, the Evergreen, those areas that are going to be growing along the new bridge. And then we also have Real Industrial. So that's kind of by the airport upwards to the North Costco area, all the way up towards Martinsville and that area that are going to be also developed in the future. We also have Homewood. We have the Rosewood and the Brighton area you can see expanding drastically. And that's where the new Costco is also located. So there's tons of developments happening there too. And then we also have the Blairmore area. So this is all the way by Kensington and Blairmore, by there's the 33rd Street. They're building a huge road to connect the two. So there's going to be tons of new developments happening in this area. So the city in general is obviously expanding. There's lots of growth, lots of new developments happening in the future. One way that the city is planning on dealing with the growth are corridors. And corridors are essentially, they're more than just city streets that get you from point A to point B. They are enjoyable and productive destinations themselves where thousands of people work, live, play. They connect neighborhoods and neighbors together. They're places for people, whether you're walking, riding, driving, or spending time with your family and friends. So they plan on approximately 22,000 new residential units being targeted along these busy corridors. So these corridors are essentially going to be areas where people can relax and walk, and there's going to be restaurants and tables and benches and just like more friendly gatherings for people to gather essentially along these corridors. They're going to be having what's called the bus rapid transit system along these corridors as well, which will be essentially more of a rapid, effective transit system that the city is going to be cultivating to just increase its effectiveness, because the transit right now is okay. It can be obviously improved. We're not going to get to the same subway system as Toronto or Vancouver, and we're most likely not going to get a C train such as Calgary. We're not that big of a city just yet. So this is, in my opinion, just going to be a more effective way that the city is going to utilize the buses with different checkpoints and different stops and just make it a lot more accommodating, different bus passes and prices and things like that. So it'll be very interesting to see how that all gets played out, but that's what they're planning. It's going to be all along 33rd Street, down Mormon Road, towards the university area, all the way down Broadway and 8th Street and Preston. So those areas are certainly going to be growing. So, with the housing prices of Saskatoon, where has it increased and by how much? Well, in 2015, there was an average sale price of $355,000. There was a total of roughly 4,000 sales. And in 2021, that increased to 368. The number of sales increased to 5,500 almost. And that's a huge amount increase in 2021. That was right during COVID. The market just skyrocketed like crazy. The house prices continue to increase in 2022 to 374. This number of sales dropped to 4,600 slightly. And then in 2023, it increased again to 377. And the number of sales increased slightly to 4,700. So from 2015 to 2023, the house price appreciated by approximately 6% over 8 years. So this is the graph that you could see from 2014 to 2023. It's a moderate increase of house prices. And I believe that Saskatchewan in our market here, we're going to be seeing a trending slow upwards increase. We're obviously going to have ups and downs like every investment market, but we're not going to see crazy dips and crazy highs like the BC or the Ontario markets. This is a strong long-term market that's going to have tons of growth in the next decade or so. So I truly believe that if you invest, the prices are going to continually increase. You can see here that even from 2015, it's going to be a slow increase. The positive thing with Saskatchewan is, I mean, with the investment market, which we'll touch on in a sec, is we have very strong cash flow. It's not really an appreciation play, and I don't think that you should be investing for that appreciation. It's just an add-on benefit to investing in real estate. But we have strong amounts of cash flow, and you have so many other different avenues of investing in real estate with the tax deferrals. You have the equity pay down, you have also the appreciation and things like that too. So there is great appreciation, and I think it's just going to continue to increase in the years to come. So, what are my favorite areas to invest in Saskatoon? Well, I'm really positive and bullish on the west side area, and that is certain areas on the west side. I believe that, I mean, as a lot of you know, or maybe you don't know, but Pleasant Hill is probably the roughest area of Saskatoon. It's where St. Paul's Hospital is. There's a lot of so-called hood members and rough or people that produce a lot of crime and lots of breaking into houses there. So it's a really rough area, hence it depreciates the value of houses quite a bit. Mount Royal is just north of it. So those are like really bad areas. Westmount and Riversdale, some areas in there and streets can be rough too. So people are very cautious of the west side because of the increase in crime in those areas. Rightfully so. Not to say that there's not any crime in like Stonebridge or Brighton. I know there's been some drug busts in Brighton because people wouldn't think that there's any drugs in those areas in the suburbs, but there certainly is. And I mean, my parents live in the east side as well, kind of in Arundel, Arbor Creek area, and we've been broken into and had some crime activity as well. So it's not to say that it doesn't happen in other areas, it's just more increase in these areas. And that rumor, or not necessarily a rumor, but that word has gotten around where the west side is sketchy and the east side is the more desirable area. And it certainly is more desirable. There's a lot of amenities. You have 8th Street, you have the university. So it is a desirable area, but it does obviously appreciate the house prices as well too. So as an investor, I really like the west side, and there's you could get a better bank for your dollar for the prices on the west side. And I personally live in Mayfair. I really like this area. One shitty thing, excuse my French, but there's these shelters that the city is implementing in the city to accommodate for the homeless. And I don't like the way that they're dealing with it. They're putting in these shelters kind of in different locations of the city. They moved a shelter to Fairhaven area, which is over here. They have a shelter right downtown, and they are moving another one to Mayfair, and they're moving another one to Sutherland. So they're kind of just spreading around the homeless people, which really sucks in my opinion. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens to the Mayfair area, the Sutherland area. I really hope that they come up with a better plan to deal with the homeless people, and I really truly wish the best for them. However, it's going to be affecting the housing market quite a bit. So that's my take on just the neighborhoods. I really do like, you can find a lot of good flip deals in like Confederation. You can find flip deals on the east side too. Sometimes you have to get, well, you always got to buy at the right price in order to flip it at the right price and get that profit. But I'm very optimistic on just the central downtown area with the new event center being put in place, some new developments happening, and etc. So, what are some of the perks of investing in Saskatchewan real estate? As a landlord myself, I truly believe that we have pretty favorable landlord rights. Obviously, there's rights to the tenants, as there always is. But as a landlord, there's certain benefits. How if your tenant's not paying rent, within 15 days, you can evict them, no questions asked. And obviously, they may not tolerate and cooperate. However, you can get a sheriff and you could talk to the Landlord Association here in Saskatchewan, and they're pretty reasonable to evicting the tenants. And it can be a 2 to 3 month process, but it can be done fairly reasonable. And I know people from Ontario and BC, they're like, man, that's crazy quick. So sometimes they're missing out in Ontario and BC like a year's worth of rent. So that's pretty awesome to think. If you don't have a good tenant, you can evict them. And if you wanted to increase the rents, then you have, well, if you're not a part of the Saskatchewan Landlord Association, then every 12 months you can legally increase the rents to a reasonable limit, and there's no rent caps. So you could increase it to whatever you want. However, within reason, obviously, people are going to be comparing your rental to others. So if you're way out of whack in price, then they're not going to be renting your place. So that is really sweet. And if you're a part of the Saskatchewan Landlord Association, every 6 months you can increase the rents to whatever you want. So every 6 months, if rents have gone up, you could just give them notice that you're going to be increasing rents. So those are some huge benefits to being a landlord and investing here in Saskatchewan. With the rent rates that we've seen here in Saskatchewan, an economist, Pete Nelson, has said that Saskatoon sees the lowest vacancy rate and strongest rent growth since 2014. This graph here shows the different years and the vacancy rates in different areas of Saskatoon. So black is 2020, red is 2021, gray is 2022. In pretty much every area but the central area, the vacancy has dramatically decreased. This has been decreased all the way to 3.7 and 3.4%, roughly like 3.5% on average, that you could say. That's a really, really low vacancy. And that just shows that the demand is crazy high here for rentals in Saskatoon, and the rent prices have obviously increased according to the demand. With purpose-built rentals, the average two-bedroom rent is $12.43, and for the condo market, an average two-bedroom rent is $13.46. This was also a very interesting graph that I found and I actually created from rentals.ca. So it goes to show the top 35 cities in Canada and where they rank from the rental perspective. Vancouver was number one, Toronto was number three, and look which one was at the very bottom, 35, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We have the lowest rent rates here in Saskatoon, not necessarily the lowest average house price, but lowest rent rates, and obviously very dependent on your property. Not all one bedrooms are going to go for 1150. Not all two bedrooms are going to go for 1405. However, it just goes to show that it's a very affordable market. So that's why there's a lot of immigrants and lots of people flocking to our province, because it is very affordable. And with finding the right deal at the right price, it certainly makes it an attractive investment for an investor. And this calculation on the very right, this percentage, essentially what it is, it's the two-bedroom rent rate divided by the average house price. So by no means is this a direct ROI calculation. It's literally just a ratio. And it just goes to show, based off of the average rent rate and the house price, what would be the best bang for your buck. But there's a lot of factors that come into play. Not every house is going to have these exact values, and there's going to be lots of different calculations and things to consider, such as your rentals, your property management, all your operating expenses, what you can get for a mortgage, and all those things. So don't treat this as, okay, Winnipeg is the best market to invest in because it's 0.52%. There's a lot of factors into play, but it's just interesting to see that based off of these numbers, Winnipeg was number one on this, and then Regina, then Montreal, or I should say not Montreal, or yeah, it was Montreal, then Ottawa, and Calgary was up there. Same thing with Saskatoon. So it just goes to show where we rank based off of the rentals in overall Canada. So I want to kind of dive into some deals here. This was my very first deal, which I briefly talked about at the start. It's a BRRRR analysis, so buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. We haven't completed the full BRRRR. We're still in the process of refinancing. However, this is a great deal to this day, and it was a deal that I found off market, and it's an off market deal that off market properties are something that I continue to add value to my investors. I always share off market deals to my properties. So if you're interested in getting any off market deals, just send a comment and I will certainly get back to you and send you over to any off market deals that you'd be interested in. But this one, as I mentioned, found on Kijiji, and we got it right then and there. I was analyzing a lot of properties before I came to this property that I found, and I knew it was a good deal. There was lots of value add that I saw. I'll just show you in the pictures here the before and after. There was smoke damage, there was ugly carpets, wood paneling, and old tile and everything. So we essentially gutted it all. And the upstairs loft was essentially like this when we bought it. There was just insulation. So I knew that was a huge value add as well, which is now actually our Airbnb suite. And it's got a little kitchenette, one bathroom, and just a little bed here. It's a bachelor suite, and it generates some great revenue, which we'll also get into. And then this is the kitchen that I took a picture of just the other day. And this was the kitchen when we were in mid reno. So we tore down the kitchen walls. There was a big wall here and gutted out all the flooring. And that was quite a big project. And as you can see from the exterior, we repainted the whole place and done a lot of landscaping with the trees and everything too. So as for this deal, I'm actually house hacking currently, and our Airbnb is upstairs, and the basement is unfinished, which we will be in the process of completing once we refinance, pull out some cash to finish up the basement. But I'm house hacking on the main floor. It's 3 bedrooms. I have one roommate paying 800 for the room with the ensuite and 700 for the other room, and the upstairs brings about on average 2,000. So with a 5% vacancy, our gross operating income is 3325 with our property taxes, insurance, average utilities, repairs, maintenance. I'm managing it, so there's no property management fee, and we have the capital expenditures in there too. Certainly, we could add in the property management fee in the future. There's room to do so with a 25% down payment and a 1.85% interest on the mortgage. That is variable. Newbie investor me should have locked it in. However, we didn't. So we're essentially paying all equity, or sorry, all interest, no equity, no principal. We're paying $540,000 of interest every single month. However, that is still really cheap, and it brings our cash flow to $1,600 every single month, which works out to be a 12.9 cap. And that's with me living here and not having the basement completed. So we put in about $100,000 worth of renovations. So that works out to be a 12.5% cash on cash return. Those are the before and after pictures. And then you may be asking yourself, does Airbnb work in Saskatoon? Short answer is yes, it does. These are the occupancies of and the bookings that we've had on Airbnb. These are direct screenshots from my phone. So been quite booked up, some long-term bookings. This guy in red, he's currently staying there. I took this picture on the 22nd, 2 days ago. And yeah, we are getting lots of bookings. And these are the average rent prices that we're getting every single month: 2,300, 2,000, 21, 38, but nothing in November because that was the 2 month booking, 25 in December, and 1,600 so far this month. So it's been pretty solid. These are the winter months too, so it's only going to get better in the summertime with that rooftop patio. And I do want to mention too on that Airbnb, they're implementing some new strategies as well to put some regulations in place for both the landlord and the tenant. And there may be some different regulations where you might have to have a business license to operate an Airbnb, but certainly not all properties are good for Airbnb. There's pros and cons to having Airbnb. You have more foot traffic, you have to furnish the place, you have to have all the stocking supplies, such as like your bed sheets, your toilet paper, your soaps, and all that. And you have to have cleaners to be able to continue to clean it because it is an ongoing management process. So your management fees can be a lot more as well. So, not necessarily are all properties good for long term or short term rentals. Some of them you may just be better off long term renting, collecting that check every single month, and not have to worry about the day to day potential day to day bookings. So just something to consider with Airbnb. This property here was another one of my investment deals, and it's a turnkey seller finance deal. I do realize there's a typo there on the finance side. This one we bought for 355,000. It's got 2 units, but it's also got 2 garages. So one of the garages is attached to the house. The other one is a detached garage, double car heated. Upstairs is 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. We're charging 2,300 plus utilities. 2 bedroom, 1 bath. We're charging 1,300 plus utilities. So we don't pay any utilities. With 5% vacancy, gross operating income 4,300. With their property tax, utilities, repairs, maintenance, property management, our net operating income is 3,500. This one we did an agreement for sale, and we'll touch on seller financing here in a second. But with an agreement for sale, the seller still remained on title. We paid them a down payment of 60,000, and we agreed on a 4.5% interest for on a 2-year term. So the seller still has a mortgage on the place. He continues to pay off the mortgage. He remains on title. We just registered a caveat on the property, and now we make the payments directly to the seller. So you have to make sure in this situation, both seller and buyer are financially equipped to be able to continue on with the payments, because if that doesn't happen, you could run into some serious issues. So that's the play that we made there. And the benefit for the seller is that they can defer their capital gains on the sale, and they can, maybe the seller had a 3% mortgage on their property. So they're getting that percentage increase on their payments every single month. So they're making monthly income. And as for the buyer, they can defer on getting a mortgage. So hopefully mortgage rates will decrease in the future and they can get a better mortgage in the future. So that's something to consider. With this, we get net income cash flow of 1885, 11.9% cap rate. We didn't have to do any repairs. It was very turnkey. Our cash on cash is about 35%. So great deal there as well. So let's dive into some seller financing. I just talked about the agreement for sale where the seller remains on title. You can agree on whatever term. It's typically when the seller still has a mortgage on the property and the buyer registers a caveat on the property. With the vendor take back, that is typically when the seller has equity in the property and they loan that equity to the buyer at a certain rate, whatever term that they deem fit. And this buyer actually will be the new person on title. So the title gets transferred over into the buyer's name. Oftentimes, too, they can get a first mortgage on the balance minus the vendor take back amount, and then the seller can register the second mortgage on that vendor take back amount as a loan to the buyer. And as for an assumable mortgage over here, that is where the buyer assumes the current mortgage that the seller has. And this could be good or bad depending on the mortgage amount that they have. But if the mortgage amount is really low, say it's a $400,000 house and they only have $100,000 left in the mortgage, you may not want to assume it because you only get that $100,000. You're getting $300,000 in equity, but typically you have to make that $300 as a down payment or work out some other different way to essentially pay that seller back that 300,000, whether they want to do mix of an assumable mortgage and mix of a vendor take back of some sort. You're going to most often have to come up with a way to pay that equity amount to the seller. Excuse me. So sometimes if there's a higher mortgage amount at a really low rate, that's when it could be of benefit. You could just assume that mortgage. You still have to qualify for that mortgage, the buyer, and everything needs to get transferred over. The title obviously switches over and everything like that. There's a bunch of different other strategies that you could do, such as cash out refinance, like the Burr method is. You could do a HELOC, home equity line of credit. You could do rent to own. You could invest with RSPs, with Olympia Trust. You could also do hard money or private money, which is a little higher interest rate loan. Or you could do a CMHC insured loan with you only put in 5% down and qualifying for 95% of the purchase price. So there's a whole bunch of different strategies that you can creatively use to close on a deal. And those are just a couple of them. So when I first got into real estate, I thought, oh, I just want to be a real estate investor. And there's a whole lot of different strategies that you can take to invest in real estate. And you just kind of figure out which one is best for you. So as for the active approach, I chose that Burr method to get started, and I did a little bit of wholesaling as well. You could do more flipping. You can do some new construction. You can get into Airbnb and vacation rentals. You can do arbitrage where you get a long-term rental and then you rent it out short-term to make a little bit of a profit per month. With the passive income side, you can just invest as a turnkey investment property, long-term buy and hold, and use your job income to fund those deals and get one every single year, whatever time frame works best for you. You can invest in some mobile home parks. You could do self-storage units. You could do multifamily where you're the general partner and you find limited partners. You could get into commercial investing. Airbnb can also be a passive investment or an active investment. And you could do some private lending on real estate, or you could also do some land development. So there's so many different areas within real estate that you can get involved in. And I just recommend to figure out a niche that is desirable for you and focus on that niche and get really good at it and scale that. So what now? I know I shared a lot of information with you and it may just be overwhelming. What I would recommend is assess your current situation. Where are you now and where do you want to go? I like to plan a 10-year vision, break it down to reverse engineer it and break it down to a 5-year vision goal, and then break it down into a 1-year goal, and then break that 1-year goal into quarters. And then within those quarters, break it down into monthly and weekly and daily actions. So that way, every single day, every single week, you're progressing towards that big 10-year vision and continually think about it and make that your golden star. So where are you now and figure out where you want to go. Then take action. So I truly believe that people are your greatest asset. Start networking, start meeting some people. You never know where your next deal or potential partner and your next partner is going to be coming from. So continually be building your brand and networking with other people and get in the game. Then find a deal, close on the deal, pick that niche that you want to invest in and learn more about and start to multiply that. So that's where I would start and recommend you to take action. So if you have any questions, I really appreciate you listening all the way to the end. I know it was a long presentation, but I just wanted to share with you as much value as I could. So I'm going to be sharing with you my pro forma spreadsheet that you can use to analyze your own deals. And I'm also going to be sharing with you this presentation. So if you wanted to run back on anything in the presentation, you're more than welcome to do so. And if there's absolutely any way that I can add some value and help you in your investment journey, this QR code is a link to my Calendly. Would absolutely love to hop on a call with you and see if there's any way that I could help. And this is my contact information here. So really appreciate you guys staying to the end, listening all in. Hope there is some valuable information that you were able to get from this presentation. And I hope to talk to you soon. Thanks again.